Hello. I'm making a marble rock video which matches my t-shirt. It's nice. I like that. That's cool. I found that at the beach. It is an amazing rock, real heavy, amazingly heavy. It's a gorgeous ocean rock. Feels real good in the hand, real healing and amazing. So I already did my meditation before I made the video because I had a lot of anger and I was already talking to Dave about this. And I didn't know how to deal with that anger at all. When the hurt comes up, like past hurt, it is always the ego that reacts. Anger is like that, is always the ego. Because if it wasn't for the ego, we would all be walking Buddhas. Someone would be doing something to aggravate us, and we would go, it's okay, come, let's do a rock meditation. But it doesn't work that way, No, people throw rocks at each other. They get irrational. They have all kinds of violent ways of dealing, in quotation marks, dealing with the other person or with a situation or with society, so they're not dealing at all with their emotional issues. They are living in a constant state of reactivity. That's what most people are doing. Seem to be, I don't know most people, but a lot of people. I don't know, maybe 60% or something. I don't know. I don't know the exact percentage of this. I just know that there are a lot of people who, given the opportunity to hurt another living being, they do it. Okay, they did a test a long time ago, the turtle test. They had a rubber tortoise. They placed a rubber tortoise who looks exactly authentic, like a real tortoise, a large desert tortoise, desert turtle. I don't know, they're 3 feet in diameter. And they placed that rubber tortoise in the middle between the 2 lanes, and they had a camera there filming. And they noticed that more than 20% of the people who drove down that highway tried to run over that turtle, even risking their car being hit by another car or falling over or skidding or having a terrible accident. They risk that in order to hurt another living being. So that seems to be something that at least 20% of the population will do if they think they can do this without legal implications, without consequences for themselves. So that's a really large number. That's very scary. Then the question arises: how large are the numbers that are not shown? Because there are people that just think about the consequences of it, and they would not risk the consequences of that action. But if they knew that there were absolutely no consequences, like an accident or whatever, that would affect them, then they might do it too. So that's the dark numbers that are not visible from this experiment. But this is already a very large number, and of people who will do something to hurt another living being, and they even risk physical injury to themselves while they're doing it. So that's very scary to me, that there are such people out there. My question is always, how can we heal this? How can we fix this? Is it possible, is the question. Is it possible to fix this and heal this? Is it possible? I'll open up this question for the world. Is it possible to heal this? Because someone who does something like this obviously is not well. This doesn't come from a mental state of wellness. That comes from a mental state of misery, unempowerment. Friedrich Nietzsche talked about this. People who do something like this they're unempowered, and they're the opposite of empowerment. They're in states of mental imprisonment, prison vibe type of, because they are mentally in a prison. I would hypothesize that all prisoners in prisons are mentally in a prison, and that's why they got there. Because everything starts in the brain. Of course, there's genetics, absolutely. So there's a person that has a genetic disposition of, given a traumatic childhood, to develop cruel coping, in quotation marks, coping mechanisms. It's just a coping mechanism. Coping with their misery, in their emotional pain, with their feelings of unempowerment. And then there are people that have the genetic disposition of never hurting another living being. And if they had childhood pain, the same childhood pain, they will never act it out. They might become self-harmers, cutters, and suicidal, go into deep states of depression or something like this. But they will not act it out or lash it out on someone else, on another living being. So that's where the genetic component comes in. With the same, that's just given the same childhood trauma. So it's a combination. It's two components that come together. The genetic disposition for acting out with violence if given a traumatic childhood. Mm. So if the genetic component is not there and there is a traumatic childhood, then the so-called coping mechanisms or escape mechanisms or the way the person lives later on in their lives is very different. It's not violent towards other living beings. So, but also suffers terribly bad. So if we remove this variable, the one component, which is childhood abuse, and suffering and trauma, then neither the person that has the genetic component for violence, nor the other one would suffer later on and either hurt others or hurt themselves. So that's why this is so vitally important, that this trauma chain is becoming dissolved now, that people do not harm and hurt baby animals or baby humans anymore, so that we can remove the suffering from all of these lives and lifetimes, okay, so that a person can live an entire lifetime without this nagging emotional pain that's there from childhood trauma, okay, to free the minds from trauma, from suffering and misery, to create lifetimes of wellness instead. So we have that choice, and we can make this conscious choice. Just like I did earlier before I made the video. I'm going to make 2 parts at least for this, because there's so much to talk about. So I have this, when I sit there with that anger, I've been hurt, like by my dad and my mother and my brother. They were they're very unfair to me. Right now they are, okay. When I look at it from above, and my husband also reminded me, they have done things for you too in the past that were well meant, okay. They've given me money and all of this. And then I have to bring myself back to ground zero and understand it cognitively, and this, reduce this inflammation of the ego that is offended, that is hurt, and all of this. So it takes all of these things. That's very important in meditation, but also to sit in meditation with that anger or that hurt and not act it out on others in any way. No angry letter, no yelling, no physical abuse, which a lot of people are doing. No. Don't act it out. So I'll make another part.